I was rewatching the anime of Youjo Senki in preparation of Season 2 and it hit me. We can witness how the war in the series escalates more and more, but the anime never tells us how it really started. We are just told there were a border breach in Norden and are shown the Empire attacking with everything they got, leaving a lot of anime onlys to think the Empire were the ones to start the war for expansionist ambitions. And this couldn't be further from the truth. So, do you want to know the true causes of this bloody conflict? Was it inevitable, or was there a conspiracy behind it? Let's dive in. Historically, the Empire and the Entente Legadonia had a long-standing, unofficial border dispute over Norden, with Legadonia claiming the territory of Norden, which was under the control of the Empire, but the Commonwealth helped mediate the conflict with the Treaty of Londinium, that established a provisional demilitarized zone accepted by both nations as a de facto border. As a result, the territory is no longer formally contested in international politics. However, the border remained tense, with repeated isolated incidents, including accidental shootings and misunderstandings on both sides that threatened to escalate the situation, revealing the agreement's fragility. Everything starts with the Entente, who was having a bad time as a country. Their economy was in recession, they have widening class inequality and persistent unemployment. These pressures create what the novel calls destabilizing centripetal forces, meaning the nation is pulling itself apart from the inside. In short, the Entente Alliance is approaching a legitimacy crisis, the government lacks effective economic solutions and public dissatisfaction is reaching a dangerous threshold. These led to a regime change and the establishment of new leaders. Instead of solving the core issues, the new government chooses a dangerous scapegoat, encouraging nationalism and exclusionism. This is a classic strategy to unify a fractured populace against an external enemy, in this case, the Empire and its hold on the disputed Norden territory. This is not a calculated long-term strategy, but a panic response and a short-term distraction. However, nationalism worsens internal divisions, it radicalizes public expectations and traps the government in its own rhetoric. Once nationalism becomes policy, backing down becomes politically impossible. The treaty is central to understanding the incident that started the war. Internationally, the treaty is seen as siding with the Empire. The provisional demilitarized zone is just a polite fiction to save face for the Entente. At home, the government spin the treaty as upholding their claim on the disputed territory and free to proclaim its actions to reclaim it as justified. But abroad, they are just seen as sore losers whose claims no one would take seriously. This creates a catastrophic gap between political rhetoric and geopolitical reality, which resulted in a reckless military action that they genuinely didn't expect would lead to war, because in their insulated reality, the territory was already theirs. While the Entente was brewing a crisis, its intended target, the Empire, was operating under a completely different, and equally dangerous, logic. The Empire is a new country that was born from the annexation and merger of numerous statelets, while maintaining traditional formalities and abandoning racial and gender discrimination, situated in the heart of the continent. While being a relatively young nation, it's already a militaristic and technological powerhouse. These factors combined made their neighboring countries wary of them. As such, the Empire is surrounded by potential enemies. To defend its vast territory, its troop numbers were always a tricky topic, and its entire foreign policy is built around paranoia and preemptive defense. Its generals are obsessed with securing buffer zones and defending borders. The Empire was aware and concerned with the Entente's new policy direction. Nonetheless, the High Imperial Command ignored the turbulent situation and considered that it was simply risky diplomacy. Nobody internationally took them seriously for the Empire's military power that, even in times of peace, could deploy a garrison the size of an army body on the border, was far more superior than the Entente's. However, urgent warnings from forward security posts along the border soon alerted Imperial Command. The Legadonia Entente Alliance was preparing for a large-scale cross-border operation. 24 hours before the outbreak of the Norden incident, the local Imperial Army was ordered to remain on standby for 48 hours. After receiving the Legadonia Entente's demand to withdraw, Imperial forces enacted national defense protocols, activating both the cautious military bureaucracy and operational commands in anticipation of a potential attack. In preparation for war, an additional corps was formed from non-garrison troops, amassing substantial resources and units. Also, to demonstrate transparency and justify its actions, the Empire even invited foreign press to observe, ensuring the world would witness its legitimate self-defense. Even at this point, the Empire was still optimistic. After all, there was no way the nearby Federation would want two neighboring nations fighting on its doorstep. They expected this to hold the Entente Alliance in check, whether through mediation or intimidation. Moreover, the Commonwealth and Republic were propping up the Entente Alliance. Surely, they would stop this suicidal advance for fear that all the aid they had provided would be wasted. Perhaps that was why, after all indication of an attack and the preparations to stop it, the Empire was still shocked and unbelieving of what happened next. June 1923, the forces of the Entente crossed the border from several points, claiming the territory of Norden as a kind of domestic propaganda. They were confident that the foreign powers would prevent the Empire from reacting, thus evading a geopolitical catastrophe, and hoped that the Empire would make some degree of concession with respect to one of the disputed territories. With this in mind, the Entente Alliance sent its military to parade around so it could patrol its own domain, even framing the border breach as a hiking exercise under pressure. However, despite being unable to comprehend the Entente Alliance's agenda or objective, the Empire would not allow such shameless territorial violation. In response, they formally declared war on the Entente. The Imperial Army moved with devastating efficiency. Artillery barrages rained down upon the Legadonian positions, while armored spearheads and infantry rapidly deployed to the front. Overhead, the Imperial Air Force established a meticulously coordinated air defense network, with fighter patrols and aerial mages standing ready to intercept any incursion. In stark contrast, the Entente invasion force was plunged into chaos. Having crossed the border without properly transitioning to a wartime posture, their operations were crippled by poor coordination. Combat controllers were assigned incorrect radio frequencies, resulting in catastrophic crosstalk with forward units. This breakdown in communication shattered command and control, crippling their capacity for organized resistance. Shortly after the initial engagement, the invading forces were swiftly annihilated. Just as the Empire prepared to shift to a full offensive and pursue the broken enemy, a company of Entente mages breached the air defense line with the objective to help the ground troops to retreat. They targeted an Imperial aerial mage officer observer, inflicting serious injuries. Despite his wounds, the observer managed to fend off the assault and protect the coordinates of the Imperial artillery batteries. For this exceptional act of valor under fire, the mage was later awarded the Silver Wings Assault Medal. I can say with total confidence that we all know who the observer is. Although the Empire had successfully repelled the invasion, fulfilling its immediate defense objectives, winning the initial conflict, the major state made a momentous decision that will doom the Empire and the world. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Now let's continue. The major state decided to mobilize the entire Central Army and launch a great offensive into the Entente itself, with the idea to free the Empire from the ever-present problem of being surrounded on all sides by other nations, successfully eliminate one of the potential threats facing the Empire, and resolve a geopolitical problem that had haunted them for ages. This decision was championed by the head of state, General von Ludwig, who overruled the fierce internal dissent from the brigadiers generals von Zetour and von Ruttersdorf. They argued for restraint, insisting the military adhere to the defensive posture of Plan 315. Yet von Ludwig was determined to end the conflict with a single, decisive blow and dismissed their concerns. This fateful decision would escalate a border war into the cataclysmic conflict known as the Great War. By committing the entire Central Army north, the Empire left its western border almost undefended, an invitation the Republic of Francois couldn't refuse. They invaded from the west, opening a devastating second front. Their objective was to capture the Empire's western territories while its main force was engaged against the Legadonian Entente. With only local garrisons left to defend the frontier and no reinforcements available, as all reserves were committed to the north, the Republican forces advanced swiftly across the lowlands. What we aren't told in the anime is that this catastrophic strategic error led to the immediate dismissal of everyone involved in authorizing the all-out northern offensive, including its chief architect, General von Ludwig. That led Generals von Zetour and von Ruttersdorf to be at the top of the military and Major von Rierugen to swiftly move ranks. Fortunately for the Empire, the Republican invasion was halted before it could seize the vital industrial heartland. This critical defense was made possible by rushing military academy instructors and cadets to the front as emergency reinforcements. Having failed to break through the Western Imperial Army's defensive line, the the Republic's advance stalled. The ensuing battles degenerated from a war of maneuver into a grinding war of trenches. With time and reinforcements lacking, the Rhine front descended into a bloody stalemate that we see in the very first scene of the anime. Then on September 24th, the Principality of Dacia, who also wanted more territory, saw their opportunity and declares war on the Empire, mobilizing its troops to launch an invasion, opening a third front, but were dealt with quickly, and the rest, as they say, is history. But behind all of this, there's something else. Being X, a self-proclaimed god who manipulates Tanya's reincarnation and, subtly, the course of history. In the novel his intervention is more subtle and less targeted to Tanya, but inventions such as the Alinium 95, or Mary Sue in the anime, show his hand in events. Some fans even theorize that Being X subtly influenced the war's outbreak, fueling paranoia, triggering conflict, and ensuring humanity would plunge into total war. Whether or not that's true, one thing is clear, the war could have been avoided. But fate or divinity had other plans. Once the war begins, the Empire quickly proves itself superior in military doctrine, but success becomes its greatest curse. Each victory causes its enemies to ally harder, regroup faster, and attack again. What was meant to be a quick war turns into a global conflict. Even the Empire's greatest victories like Operation Lockpick or the surprise assault on the southern front, only deepen the cycle. Every conquered nation becomes a new rebellion zone. Every ceasefire is a trap. And Tanya? She rises from being a tool of the system to its most terrifying symbol, a child soldier turned general, embodying the sheer horror of war's logic. If we seek a clear answer, the primary cause of the Great War lies with the Legadonia Entente Alliance. Driven by desperation to satisfy nationalist ambitions, it invaded the territory of another nation without a formal declaration of war, violating the Treaty of Londinium and naively assuming that the Empire would not respond. A miscalculation with immediate and catastrophic consequences. In that sense, the immediate responsibility for igniting the conflict rests with them, something that in the novel was acknowledged by the other nations, until they started fearing the Empire. However, the Empire is not free of blame. Its own strategic misjudgment significantly prolonged the war beyond what might have been necessary. Had the major state refrained from committing its entire central army to the northern front, it could have better defended against the Republican invasion. With more balanced fronts, the conflict might have been shorter and less destructive. These errors were compounded by several other failures. But the truth is that the Empire didn't provoke the war, it was cornered into it. Its neighbors feared its growing industrial and military power. They believed preemptive war was the only way to stop the Empire from eventually dominating the continent. This explains why the Empire fights almost every country at once. It's not imperial ambition, it's survival. Diplomacy also failed in this scenario because there was no trust. No real alliances, just temporary, non-aggression, pacts everyone knows are lies. The Republic and Dacia want both to carve pieces out of the Empire. The Russi Federation believes in spreading communism, and the Commonwealth wants to maintain global relevance. The Empire's success in early battles makes the Empire overconfident. Enemy propaganda paints the Empire as monsters uniting foes against them. In short, the war started due to geopolitical tensions, fear of the Empire, and failed diplomacy, then escalated due to military overconfidence. No one is innocent, everyone wants something, and the war becomes a free-for-all. Ultimately, nationalism was the spark that ignited the war, and nationalism was the fuel that sustained its devastation throughout this bloody era. So, how did the war in Youjo Senki start? Through fear, through betrayal, through cold logic, and divine manipulation. A world where everyone saw war coming, and charged into it anyway. Youjo Senki isn't just military fantasy, it's a chilling look at how nations fall into war when they believe power is everything, and trust is a weakness. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Which nation in Youjo Senki do you think was most responsible for the war? Was the war inevitable, or could cooler heads have prevented it? Until next time.